Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So more than a year ago, I introduced you to a startup company that discovered a process to remediate PFAS in our environment. Today, we'll get an update on their important work and hear more about a new facility. Please welcome co-founder and CEO of Enspired Solutions, Dr. Denise Kay, and the director for Michigan Rise, Prem Bogotala. Welcome, Denise and Prem.
Morning.
Good morning, Chris.
Bogotala. Did I get that right?
Perfect.
All right. When it comes crunch time, sometimes that stumbles on out. But I'm really, really thrilled to have you both back. Such an important topic. You hear about PFAS, and I think the layperson gets that it's bad, but doesn't know really about what it's all about and why it's important to do this important work. So, Dr. Kay, I'd like to start with you. Talk about your background and how did you get to this point where PFAS became really the thrust of your work?
Sure. I had a career for about 23 years as an environmental toxicology consultant to a lot of the major chemical industries. And through that position, I was able to foresee this existence of PFAS in the environment becoming an increasingly important question, both for human exposure, human health, and even wildlife. So with that in mind, I had started to look at the science behind it, and through that came upon a process that could be used to effectively destroy PFAS in water. And it was at that point that I convinced a favorite colleague, Meng Wang, to quit her job along with me.
Wow.
And co-found Enspired Solutions.
So PFAS, what exactly is PFAS in our environment and why is it a bad thing?
Sure. PFAS is a unique chemical molecule, unique because it has a lot of carbon-fluorine bonds, and that is the strongest single bond in nature. The chemical was never existed in nature. It was only man-made. And because of these strong bonds and these unique properties, it does not naturally break down. They're not yet. Maybe we'll find a way.
Yep.
But because of that, every time it's made and used and gets released into the environment, it continues to build up. It does the same thing in the human body, human blood. 98% of us now have it in detectable levels in our blood. And more recently, in the past few years, they've been finding toxic effects that range all the way from cancer to reduced immune responses because of human exposure.
Got it. Okay. So then why was PFAS invented? What are practical applications?
Yeah. There are some practical applications that we all know and love, but didn't recognize that it could have associated toxicity. But one of the largest sources to the environment is PFAS is the most and potentially the only effective way of putting out a high temperature fire, like a jet fuel fire.
Okay.
If there's a fire at an airport, you want them to be using the PFAS foam to put it out. We also encounter it in our everyday life as like coatings on fast food wrappers, something that doesn't allow the moisture or grease to soak through a piece of paper or a paper cup, or when we have a tablecloth that's stain resistant and the water beads up on it, that's a PFAS. Raincoats, cooking pans, Post-it notes that
right,
stick and pull.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's in a lot of very practical applications that we've become reliant upon.
And can we assume that we kind of didn't know what we didn't know? I mean, nobody was nefarious when PFAS became invented. It was more of a, hey, we figured this out. It works. We use it. Kind of like,
yes.
I think about like asbestos, or lead paint or smoking when you're pregnant. It's just kind of, you deal with the knowledge that you have.
It is.
Then over time you realize there's a problem with it, and then you figure out what you're going to do to either get rid of it and try to find an alternative, right?
That is the case, and that's partially an artifact of the way we regulate chemicals in the United States. Manufacturers can make products with a chemical without the burden of first proving that it's non-toxic. That's not the case around the world, but it is the case in the United States. And therefore, if a product is found to be very useful, we can make products from it, use it, we can all buy it, put it in our homes, and then this situation later out find it's toxic.
So now we find out that it is toxic. It's already out there, and it's identified as a problem. Mm-hmm. Is this and I don't know who they would be, but are they saying that, I mean, is PFAS illegal to produce and manufacture now, or is the hope, or not the hope, but the solution to be, we need this, but now we need a counterbalance to help eradicate it because we're going to use it? Like, where is the tenor of legalities and solutions to this?
Right now, in terms of regulations and legalities, it is not illegal to produce it. It is not illegal to use it in manufacturing. Regardless, many companies that did manufacture it are phasing it out.
Okay.
And there is a big push, especially from our Department of Defense, to investigate and find replacement chemicals that are as effective at putting out high temperature fires, because it is used in the military, Air Force, Navy, Army, for those types of uses. And it was just last month that the military approved that first product to do that.
Got it. Okay. So Enspired Solutions, you have a plan or a product, an invention, excuse me, to help with this problem of PFAS in our environment. What exactly have you patented? What are you creating? What is your product?
Sure. Our product, if you imagine it, is a large machine about the size of 2 large refrigerators.
Okay.
And it is what we consider a reactor, as in the PFAS contaminated water comes in, it is processed for a number of hours, and then the water that's released no longer has PFAS in it. So we call that machine the PFASigator, and the chemistry that occurs within that reactor is our patented process. So we sell that machine and licenses to use the chemical reaction, the patented chemical reaction to various customers.
So who would those customers be?
It ranges quite a bit. Our customers are the people who put together the whole systems, and we sell that one Lego in the whole train of water treatment.
Yep.
But the end users can be anything from drinking water facilities that are pumping water out of the ground that has PFAS in it. You can treat that before it goes down drinking water pipes. It can be industry manufacturers, like Michigan has a lot of metal plating facilities, and they've had PFAS traditionally in their processes, and so they've got PFAS coming out in their wastewater. It can be treated before it goes to the facility. And really an exciting new application we've discovered. I talked about PFAS being in firefighting foam. Because of that, and because it's very effective, it's in many of the fire trucks, especially those at the airports. And there is now a push to decontaminate those fire trucks so they can put in the new non-PFAS foam and not be further contaminating the environment. We found a way to use our PFASigator to decontaminate fire trucks by hooking it up directly. So that's a new and unique end user.
Well, that's all fascinating. And I'm going to pause for a moment and thank one of our sponsors. And when it comes to creating commercial and residential spaces, there's no one I trust more than my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company. Brent Forsberg and his team take a holistic approach to creating an environment that suits your needs while creating a foundation for a prosperous community. Since the 1950s, Forsberg's been the name to trust if you're looking to partner on a project, occupy a great space to live or work, or simply if you want to follow one of the great thought leaders in our state. Reach out to my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company by calling 517-349-9330 or check out their website at lansingrealestate.com. You won't regret it. And Prem, we've had you here quietly off mic for a little bit. Talk about Michigan State University's foundation's role in all of this process. Why are you here?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
So MSU Research Foundation had the pleasure to work with Denise and Enspired Solutions from the get-go. I would, as I recall, I think initially we were able to assist Enspired with the Entrepreneur in Residence, EIR.
Okay.
Through our sister subsidiary at Michigan Press called Spartan Innovations. And then also we were the first, if not one of the earliest investors.
You were the first investors.
In Enspired. So our association goes back a long way. Just and I think also recently a tenant. So, it kind of like allowed us to flex all of MSU Research Foundation's muscles. So it's a great, use case of the value that the Research Foundation can bring. And then myself particularly, I'm the director at Michigan Rise and Red Cedar Ventures, which are early stage investment funds that are wholly owned subsidiaries of the foundation.
Yep.
And so when Denise and Enspired launched their first price round, it was our privilege to work with her and help bring a syndicate together, earlier this year.
Got it. And so to clarify and elaborate on some of that, and for fans of the show, we've had a lot of contingents from the MSU Foundation on the show over the years, and hopefully we've done a decent job of explaining this cobweb of resources that Michigan State University's foundation deploys, right? And trying to help startups and help raise funding. And so Michigan Rise and Red Cedar Ventures and Spartan Innovations.
Yes.
Can you give us like a 30-second quick rundown, or maybe a little longer it might take to kind of identify what the roles of each of those three entities are that are under the foundation's umbrella?
Absolutely. So Spartan Innovations is probably the earliest there. It's a venture creation arm. It helps companies that are maybe spinning out IP from MSU with resources such as some consulting, grant applications, EIRs to kind of help them get going in those early stages.
EIR is Entrepreneurs in Residence, which means that's like kind of almost like an executive coach, an entrepreneur that is helping.
That's right.
Right. Because again, like a chef who wants to own a restaurant, they know how to cook, but there's so many facets to owning a restaurant that they're not skilled in. And no offense, obviously you're very, very sharp, but you clearly are a scientist who understands how this works, but there's corners you don't know to look around and how to take that idea to market, right?
And it helped in multiple ways, not just the expertise of someone who's been through a startup process, but the MSU Foundation also funded that person.
Right.
So it gave us another body on our team when our team was only 2.
Right.
And that's a huge increase in available person time and experienced person time.
And what's wonderful is that is non-dilutive. So at that earliest stages of a company's journey, to have that resource of experienced professional being funded through non-dilutive means can bring a lot of value to company at that stage.
Right on.
And then Red Cedar Ventures and Michigan Rise are the venture funding or venture investment arms of the foundation.
Okay.
Red Cedar Ventures is more focused on the MSU ecosystem, whereas Michigan Rise is backed by the MEDC and the Research Foundation and is focused across the state to back early stage tech companies like Enspired Solutions. And we've had the privilege of investing from both funds in Enspired.
That's great. And then you mentioned being a landlord. So where have you been operating Enspired Solutions most recently or originally?
We initially started in the Van Camp building, which is an incubation space owned by the MSU Foundation. And that's where I first touched the very sticky web of the, and I encourage anybody to just jump onto that web. It's sticky in a wonderful way. It connected me to all of these resources. We outgrew the available space there, and that came at just the right time when MSU Foundation was opening space in the Alliance building, which is near the new McLaren Hospital, for startups. And they were willing to remodel the spaces to make it so it was a combined wet chemistry lab and office space in an architecturally beautiful building. And so we now have expanded there and have all of our equipment and people together.
And is that space used to just continually test the machinery that, you talk about this 2 refrigerator side. Where is that produced? Is that manufactured at another site, or where does that get made?
We are contract manufacturing that piece of equipment.
Okay.
Currently it's not in Michigan, although I would like to work on also manufacturing in Michigan. Then the piece of equipment will get shipped to our laboratory. Yes, we do testing on it there. We're constantly testing to optimize the chemistry in addition to serve specific customer purposes. And then we have all the necessary things to continue research and development of other technologies related to PFAS.
Okay. And is the kind of the next steps, the fast forward to be able to, once you kind of prove the concept, then churn out a bunch of these and sell them all over the world to people that want to clean their water up?
That's exactly the next step. Our first field pilot demonstration will be in Grand Rapids starting November 1st at a metal finishing plant. And so I encourage anybody to reach out to Enspired Solutions, and we will be able to show people the machine in the works, or of course visiting our laboratory is always a possibility. And then producing more of them around the world. And you mentioned around the world, it is interesting that we are getting, I'd say 30% of customer inquiries are coming internationally from Denmark, Australia, Brussels. Around the world, people are shipping us samples to test.
Got it. Okay. And it's Enspired Solutions.
Yes.
Enspired, right?
Correct.
Solutions. So you'll get the little red line under your document telling you that you've misspelled it, but you haven't. Where did the name come from?
It's a nod to the environmental industry.
Yep.
EN, and then we just like the idea Inspired.
Inspired. That's fantastic. And talk a little bit about your partner. I'm sorry, you mentioned that you have
absolutely.
Yeah, a co-founder that you convinced to quit her job to take on this endeavor.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful for it. Meng Wang is my co-founder, and we had worked together for probably 10 years in that environmental consulting industry. She's a PhD chem engineer and also has her MBA. So her background in business was and continues to be very helpful, because I come from environmental toxicology PhD background, managing offices, et cetera. But when it comes down to running a business, that's been the steepest learning curve for me, but an enjoyable challenge at the same time.
Right. Okay. So how can people learn more about Enspired Solutions? Social, websites, things of that nature?
LinkedIn is a really good way to go. And Enspired, as you spelled it, Enspired. We tend to post there our latest results, our places we're presenting, places we can be met, and we do have our website.
Fantastic. And is there anything else you want the listeners to know? Is there... you mentioned in November, we're recording this as of like late September 2023. So you mentioned early November in Grand Rapids, there's an opportunity to see your machine deployed. And people can come, like there will be an event that they can follow?
It's best to contact us, because we will be at a manufacturing facility. And so we'll kind of have times where we can admit people and let them come see the machine in works. And of course, like I said, always at our lab if it's more convenient. To see there. And
is there opportunities for investors at this stage, or is there any other needs that Inspired? I mean, we need you to succeed. We need you to deploy your tools, around the world and help us clean up this mess. How can our listeners get involved or help even more than that?
Wonderful. We have significant investment at this point, and we're working very hard to make that investment carry us through to profitability. We anticipate our next significant round of investment will be in early 2025, when we will dramatically expand our global reach.
Perfect.
So that investment level, but really awareness, talking about PFAS and being aware that there is a company in Michigan that has a solution that is unique. No one else in the country is offering this type of solution. If it comes up in conversation, it's worth mentioning. Fantastic. Well, I'm really proud to have you here in Michigan. Very excited for the success you've already had. Looking forward to having you back maybe in early 2025 to talk about your next downshift. We've been talking to the co-founder and CEO of Inspired Solutions, Dr. Denise Kay, and the director of Michigan Rise, Prem Bogotala. I really appreciate you both making it in this morning. I hope you have a great rest of your day. You too. Thanks, Chris. For having us.